I also want to let Ms. Fox speak on the cemetery aspect of it.
Well, I wasn't.
Did I pronounce that right? Because I already messed up one thing.
That's okay.
I don't want to do it again.
And I wasn't prepared to talk. I didn't know I was supposed to, and you both gave a wonderful
Well, can I prompt you with a question?
Sure.
Or do you have something to ad-lib on?
Well, I can just say in our particular community, many African Americans have served our country. That's a fact. I'm friendly with all the funeral directors because I've been in my job 26 years, so they always know who to go to, for any type of questions regarding burial. On a personal level, I'm a daughter of 2 Marines. My mother was one of the First Lady Marines, and my dad served at Iwo Jima, so I love our veterans. That's very sincere. And then also on a personal level in Louisville, and I forget the year, it was 96 or 97, there was a round table that began, I believe, through the churches to ease racial relations. And I called them up and went to went to all the meetings. I was in the first group of people, went to a church way out on Dixie Highway past Owen Funeral Home. I just know places by funeral homes. And it was wonderful. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then my sister became sick and died, and I raised her children, and I was not able to do anything after that. But I love our veterans, and I very much want to help any minority veteran because it's in my heart. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for the cemetery aspect? Because I guess the one question I have is there a list to sign up on to be buried in a national cemetery?
The way a national cemetery works, any honorably discharged veteran can be buried in any open national cemetery. Now, the ones in Louisville, we kind of got filled up, so we just have room left for spouses. So what the federal government does, it purchases land and pays for it, which the cemetery is near Fort Knox. It's in Radcliffe. The federal government, the NCA, built the cemetery, then turns it over to the state of Kentucky. There are 5 now in Kentucky, and so those are open. So when I get calls, unless it's a person who already has a child or spouse buried in one of our cemeteries, mine, which are Zachary Taylor, there's one in New Albany, we have a small one in Cave Hill, and one in Lebanon, Kentucky, and then there's some on the east side of the state. If we don't have room, I direct them to one of the state cemeteries and try to help them.
Okay, I think another question over here was, is there a fee?
So there is not a list. It's first come, first served. However, a good thing with the state cemetery is they will let you sign up, and we do not ever charge. A national cemetery cannot charge, and we include everything. That includes the grave liner or vault that the casket goes in. The state cemeteries do charge $300 for the spouse. So it is a benefit if it's a national cemetery, but if it is a state cemetery, there is a small fee.
And you said small fee for the spouse, so the
just for
veteran
the
is
spouse.
for free?
Yes, everything for the veteran is free. And just for you all to know this is important. So many times some of the private cemeteries advertise free space for veterans. It is not free. I've had so many complaints of hidden charges, and it very much hurts the families. We are truly free, or if it's the state veteran cemetery that we have built, the $300 is very minor because that includes the vaults, everything. So just don't fall for the free thing in the private cemetery.
Yeah, I was just going to ask for clarity. Is every veteran entitled to free burial anywhere in the country at a veteran cemetery?
Every honorably discharged veteran. After 1980, they do have to serve for 24 months, whatever they sign. But yes, any honorably discharged veteran can be buried in any open national cemetery. And also, their dependent children. Many people have what's called an adult dependent children, which would be a child that has a severe disability, either mental or physical, acquired before age 21, or just dependent children. So we have many children buried in our cemeteries and adult dependent children. So say mentally retarded, some very big diagnosis that they depended on their parents. Could not be.
But you can't plan to be buried there because it's first come, first served.
Right, but some of our cemeteries have lots of room. As an example, if a person's going to be cremated at our cemetery in New Albany, we expanded last year and added an extra row along each of the walls, which gave us 400 extra spaces. So, they can kind of plan, and for sure you can plan for the state cemetery, which isn't too far because they have a lot of room.
I'm sorry, I don't want to.
Yes.
You're talking specifically burial costs, the cemetery, right?
Yes.
So this does not.
Just it's up to the family to get the person to the cemetery.
Okay, well, I guess I'm trying to say funeral costs like the embalming
Correct.
and all this kind of stuff is not. That's not a part of this,
No,
right?
unfortunately.
Can you address those
I
costs?
can't.
Pardon?
Please.
I can address those
Okay.
because that's before
Yeah, before you get
they
there,
come
right?
into the picture. With that, it used to be at one time, all veterans that had an honorable discharge, the VA pays something toward the burial. Anymore, the VA does not do that. There is a flat fee that is paid if you have an honorable discharge and you're in receipt of benefits from the VA at the time of death, whether it's service-connected pension, doesn't matter, or you die in a VA facility, nursing home or hospital, or you die en route, authorized travel to a VA hospital, and something happens in the conveyance, ambulance or whatever, you die on the way. Those type of situations, that flat rate of $600 will be paid.
Anything
It's
above
a flat
that?
rate of $600. Now, if the veteran is in receipt of benefits and is service connected, doesn't matter the percentage. If his death is determined to be service related, again, he can be 10%, but if he died from that particular service condition, then his death would be rated service connected and the agency will pay $2,000 toward his burial. Either way it goes, whether it's service connected or not service connected, if the veteran expires in the VA hospital, the VA will pay the travel. And a lot of people forget about that travel when it comes to the funeral home. If the person is in a hospital or something, there's a fee because funeral home picks up on everything. They charge to come to the hospital, they charge to take the body back to the funeral home, they charge to take the body to the cemetery. But if the veteran dies in that VA hospital, then all that travel is paid by the VA. The VA will also pay if the veteran is buried out of state. They will pay the cost of that travel by plane or train, and usually we don't question the amount. It's whatever that carrier charges, we will pay if the veteran dies in the VA hospital.
And also, just to elaborate also, she mentioned the 600 and 2,000, that's up to. So if it only costs you 1,600, then that's what you're gonna get reimbursed, so it's up to. Doesn't mean you're gonna get the $2,000, it doesn't work like that, it's up to. Okay, the gentleman had a question here.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if cremation was also part of the process. How does that differ from traditional, or it doesn't, as far as what you're entitled to?
It's a whole lot cheaper.
That's the only thing.
So the family would pay, I mean, in her situation, if there was money because of the person's situation, but it is up to the family or the VA to get the person to the cemetery, and then the remains are buried in ground. They have the same upright marble headstone. It's all a benefit, all paid for.
That's if they didn't want to take them with them or something, right? Take the ashes with them. Some people
Right, and most people do consider burial. And we just found out today, this very honorably discharged veteran didn't realize, that she could be, her cremated remains could be buried. So I went through the whole spiel, and now she knows. So all the funeral directors know, and they are very good about explaining to the families, these are the benefits, here are your options. Some families choose after cremation to kind of hold on to their loved one and then call us later, but the person's just as eligible.
We have another question.
Can you talk a little bit more about the state cemetery? Where's that at?
It's in Radcliffe. The one closest to Louisville is in Radcliffe.
So I thought that was that's not a federal.
No,
like
the federal
Jackson
government
County?
built it and then turned it over to the state. So the
Okay.
state has the right to make up their own. That's why they can charge the $300 because we do not charge. So they did that, I think, because certain metropolitan areas, with money and budgets, the government would not allow them to build another cemetery because we are definitely filled up with Zachary Taylor. So they consider if there's a cemetery, whether state or national, within 65 miles to a large city, large metropolitan area, that to be close enough.
then the veteran can be buried there.
Oh, yes. And our cemetery in Lebanon, Kentucky, and we have lots of rooms. It's out in the country. The veterans in that area twice have bought land and given it to us, so we have plenty of room, completely free. Everything there is free. Some of the funeral homes don't even charge mileage to the families because they want to help the veterans out to get to the cemetery.
So Lebanon is a national cemetery?
Yes, sir. Lebanon
and Radcliffe is a state cemetery?
Radcliffe is a state. And from my office, my name is on there. I can help you with either one, but Lebanon's completely free for both veterans and spouse.
Thank you.
Now, Ms. Hart, the last question I have is, if a veteran's family wants to move him or her to Washington, D.C., does your office collaborate with the office in D.C. to make that transition smooth?
Correct. If a person is disinterred, the next of kin and all living family have to sign a notarized statement that, yes, we want our loved one moved. They are very particular on the legal aspect of that. So after all that is secured, if the person's going to a national cemetery, we work it out with that cemetery. If they're, again, going to a private cemetery, it's fine. But with the disinterment, we just have to make sure, because we could be sued if we moved someone's father and they didn't want them moved, that the spouse and all the children and anybody involved with that veteran sign and notarize. We have a particular form we use that they give their permission to move. Because if there's any disagreement in the family and one of the children doesn't want mom or dad moved, we cannot legally move them.
I want before we go, I want to bring this out to in case there are any Navy veterans or you know anybody with the Navy, they still have burial at sea if anybody is interested in burial at sea.
Could you?
Oh, you raising your hand?
Yes. Could you address?
No, I was talking to the gentleman here.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm not. Just exercising.
Could you address the Arlington?
Well, Arlington is under the Army. The rest of us are under the VA. We have a computer system called BOSS, Burial Operations Support System. Our branch of the government was the very first with the best computer system. It was offered to Arlington at one point, but they didn't accept it. So now our top people are going to Arlington to help out their situation. So Arlington, just Arlington, and there's a soldier's home in Maryland, I think, there are the only two under the Army. The rest of us are under the VA, or there's some Civil War cemeteries that are under the Department of the Interior. So their problem is they are not a part of us. That they are, at one time the VA was under the Army, the quartermaster. I believe it was in the 1978 when it went from the Army to us. But Arlington stayed with the Army. So that they didn't take our computer system at the time.
So it's because of the computer?
Well, maybe things weren't worked. I don't want to speak against them, but they didn't have the same accounting standards that we do. We have all kinds of standards and measures where everything is exact. We just do not have problems in the national cemeteries. But Arlington was still under the Army, and they do not have, or they probably will go to that eventually. So I'm not sure what system that they had, where the problems were caused, but they are not a national cemetery. They are with the Army. Yes, sir.
Yeah, what's the criteria for being buried in Arlington?
For Arlington, it's a little bit stricter. You have to be an officer or retired after 20 years, or I'm pretty sure about this, if you're cremated. I think if a person's cremated, I believe that's okay also because they have the space. I think they are more limited on space, so it's officers, retirees, and again, I can't really speak too much for them because they are under the Army, but I'm pretty certain cremation also.
Does it matter what rank if they're cremated?
No. Did you say what rank?
Doesn't matter what rank.
No, enlisted or officer.
Cremated.
If you're cremated.